So I said on social media, I'm going to do a cleanup in the city of Baltimore. And the tweet went absolutely viral.
How did the RNC find you? Did you find them or did they find you?
Oh gosh, how much time
Yeah.
do we have on this?
And I'm telling you this because I'm doing the research for the 2026 gubernatorial race here in California.
I live those statistics. I'm on the streets. I'm out registering voters. I'm doing the cleanups. I'm not just tweeting from some ivory tower. I'm where I need to be, and that's with the people.
I see a lot of misery in young people who are stuck in the world of identity politics. I'm Nicole Shanahan. Welcome to Back to the People podcast, which highlights the growth of a movement uniting America, where our government is free from corporate capture and where we give voice back to the American public. Scott Presler, thank you so much for joining me on Back to the People podcast. How are you?
Life is good. I feel like a winner. How are you?
I'm feeling pretty good as well. So you were just telling me a minute ago, you're sitting in your childhood home in Virginia. Is that right?
Yeah, I grew up here in Fairfax in the belly of the beast, basically the Los Angeles of Virginia. And my dad's a Navy captain, so we moved around a lot as a kid. But yeah, I grew up in this very household.
That's nice. Are you guys getting ready for the holidays?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. My dad's retired now, so he's driving my mom crazy. But we're getting ready for Christmas.
Oh, that's wonderful. Scott, you came on my radar. You have, you're oftentimes described as a provocateur. And you came on my radar when I saw a video of you in San Francisco getting in an argument with someone about how democratic policies are no longer in the service of the people. And you were trying to explain it to people by showing them their environment, showing them the garbage, showing them the sadness and the homelessness and the hopelessness. You really put a camera on it, and more so, you put yourself in the middle of it. What drew you to that kind of, I hate the word advocacy because what you're doing is so much more than advocacy. You're creating a visceral experience for people to understand what you're trying to share and show them.
Thank you. Well, that moment you're describing was from San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's district. But let me backtrack for a moment as to why I even began doing those community cleanups. When President Trump was in office in his first term in 2019, Kim Klacik was posting videos of the city of Baltimore, Maryland. And let's just say that the videos weren't very flattering for the residents of that city. And I saw everybody posting about it. They were getting likes and they were getting retweets and they were bringing a lot of attention to an issue, but nobody was really offering help. Nobody was lifting a finger to actually solve the problem. And I just went, okay, if nobody else is going to do it, I will. So I said on social media, I'm going to do a cleanup in the city of Baltimore. And the tweet went absolutely viral. Everybody wanted to help. And then I was like, oh gosh, I actually have to follow through with this. So within 7 days, we got 200 volunteers from all across the United States that descended upon Baltimore, and we picked up 12 tons of trash in 12 hours in one singular day. And from that experience, I learned a lot of things. I learned, A, it doesn't matter how much money the government gets because it doesn't mean that money is going to be allocated correctly to actually help citizens. But B, I learned more importantly, I don't need the government to solve my problems. What I do need is concerned citizen activists that are going to come together as a family in an act of love. And you know what? We're going to do it ourselves, whether or not the government helps us. And so that brought me to start doing these cleanups all over the United States. We organized in Atlanta, Austin, Baltimore, Chicago, Denver, Duquesne, Detroit, Houston, Kenosha, Los Angeles, Miami, Milwaukee, Nashville, Portland, Pittsburgh, Philly. And as you saw, I was protested on the streets of San Francisco for doing a cleanup. And then let me just get to that briefly. So the reason the righteous anger that you saw in that video of me talking to that woman is she comes up after we just spoke to dying Americans on the street right there. And she said, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, we're doing a cleanup." And then it was almost like she turned and she goes, "Why aren't you cleaning up your area?" And I had to take a moment and be thoughtful and not just react to her. And I said, "You know what? We've been doing these cleanups all over the United States because I care." And that's the moment you saw when I go off on her and basically saying, "I shouldn't be here. This isn't even my home. Why are we taking care of the rest of the world? Why aren't we putting dying Americans that are suffering on the streets of San Francisco first?" And that video, thank you to that young woman because it's been seen over 40 million times. And I'm sorry for the long answer, but I think the context is
I love
important.
it. No, I really love the story. And what I hear when I hear you talking about this is someone that is sick of the BS, who's tired of the, the photo op of Gavin Newsom going into one of these slums and trying to pack up garbage on his own. I don't even think those bags made it into a garbage can. Who knows? But he did it as a photo op. And then he complained about how people in his state, local community leaders and local governments weren't doing that job. I mean, this is a man that put $28 billion towards homelessness and achieved virtually nothing. And so what I hear is this, you know, laser focused attitude that when you just put your effort where your intention is, it can get done very quickly. But if you do it through these other channels, like these government political, politicized channels, they don't get done and there's room for money laundering. I mean, where does this money go? It's definitely not going to clean up our streets. So where is it going? Have you spent any time tracking some of these, really grandiose government projects that funnel billions of dollars into these efforts? Have you tracked where that money actually ends up?
No, I haven't done that deep dive. But to give you one anecdotal story about the complete dereliction of duty when it comes to government and all of the finger pointing that it does, listen to this. We did a cleanup in Van Nuys in Los Angeles. And the situation is the federal government had a whole bunch of homeless that were living next to, I mean, thousands of tons of trash. And just a little area is separating the homeless community from all this trash. And as people should probably know, California, with all due respect, I mean this lovingly, still has typhoid fever and it has the bubonic plague. I mean, that is documented on the streets of some of these major cities. And so, that is the respect that we give to our homeless, having them having to sleep with that. And so the federal government was leasing this property to the state of California. So California said to the feds, "I don't have to clean this. This is your property." And the feds said back to California, "I don't have to clean this. I'm leasing this out to you." So the homeless community opened their gate, allowed us, private citizens having nothing to do with the feds nor the state, and we worked with the homeless to clean it up. Now, here's the interesting part. A lot of people might say, "Scott, these areas that you clean up, it's probably going to go back to being trashed again." Not this area. I heard from an CBS reporter, just so have it, months later, and he goes, "Scott, I want you to know the area you cleaned up in Van Nuys actually stayed clean, and members of the homeless community that were living out there are now safely into housing." But imagine, had we never stepped in, would the feds still be pointing at the state government and vice versa to this day?
It just takes someone outside the system to come in to show how underwhelming the government has been in its efforts, and how much taxpayer dollar just goes to waste. I mean, I've been trying to figure out what's happened to that $28 billion that Newsom put into solving homelessness. I saw pictures of one of these community homes, these small, tiny home community, but they were all empty, and I've heard no follow up reports. And so it strikes me that you're seeing something that I think is very important that governments have lost sight of, which is the exercise of humanity, the exercise of connecting human to human, citizen to citizen, American to American, and saying, you should not be living like this. You deserve better. And you're coming at it from a place that is very deeply heartful. Where you've got a big heart, Scott. Where does who can we thank for that?
Well, I had definitely the folks that are upstairs right now.
Literally, like your mom
I
and
mean,
dad, or like upstairs, like
ah. Oh, yeah, and you might be able to hear them, but they're stomping around making dinner or doing something. But no, I brag on my folks all the time. What I love about my parents especially is they've been married for 44 years. They still to this day share true love. I mean, my dad, I make fun of him in a really nice way, but he still calls my ma his bride. And I think that's something you don't really see nowadays is I wish people would tough it out. I wish people would make things work instead of just moving on in a different direction. And my dad is a Navy captain, and his father, my grandfather, was a Navy captain, and I'm an Eagle Scout. So I think in this life, I have been brought up with a life of service, of giving back, of the importance of wanting to do good in your community. That is, a part of my role as the son, as a member of this world. And I think one thing that people in politics, I think it's really important the art of storytelling as well. And two of those individual stories that still just speak to me to this day are in Baltimore. I'm 6'5". You can't see that right now. But in Baltimore, I met an 81-year-old woman at the time who was 4'11", and Miss Louise saw the work that we did in cleaning up the streets of Baltimore, and we became friends, and we started this relationship. And then in Van Nuys, I think of a gentleman, he goes by Bear. And I think there's this stigma against the homeless community that we need to do a better job of fixing. And they go, look, the homeless are the homeless because they choose to be that way, or it's, whatever circumstance they have going on. And really, if you take time to listen to the homeless, Bear, when we cleaned it up, he works on television production crew sites during the day. I mean, this man is working, but life has become so unaffordable and has moved away from serving working class America that here he is, a man that's working, an intelligent man, bigger than I am, and he's homeless during the night. And so I think one thing that I appreciate about you, Nicole, that I want to see more from society and more from our politicians is less of using these and more using these, and even more so using these. We need to become better listeners and we need to become better doers. And once we do those two things, I think we'll have a more perfect society.
Amen to that. I just love that sentiment. It's just been wild to me to see how backwards and upside down our world has become. And it's almost as if they, you know, the politicians, especially in these blue cities, find themselves to be living in a different reality altogether. And they get away with it because they spend so much money creating these smoke screens, these false narratives, these politicized narratives. I read that Newsom spends hardly any time in the Capitol in Sacramento. In fact, he just moved his home officially to Marin, so he's not even in anywhere around our Capitol. He's 4.5 hours away by car, and that's that's a pretty big distance if you're talking about running the sixth largest economy in the world. He's not even coming into work. I've been looking at our budget here in the state of California. It's over $500 billion of debt. Just debt. How we've gotten into such a situation, I don't really fully understand, but $500 billion in debt for a single state is unheard of. This has never happened before. Um, I, I've been trying to understand how to fix the state of California, because if we can fix the state of California, we can fix the United States, which is, almost in $40 trillion of debt. And I feel that it really is going to take that mentality, that very mentality you described of each individual doing things that result in measurable outcomes, right? Like you went out and cleaned up the streets and you collected 12 tons of garbage. That is a measurable outcome. You heard back from the Van Nuys cleanup and that slum had not reformed. That is a measurable outcome. And so what we have right now is a government that has these programs that is either reporting that they are, I don't know that many of these programs even have reporting requirements, let alone milestones that they must hit in order to pass any accountability analysis. And so without any accountability, we're just going to end up using the government and the government budget as a way to money launder into these completely ineffective programs that are going to fail time and time again. And I think that there's a very important energy at play when we allow this to happen year after year, when we allow, you called it a dereliction of duty, that creates an energy in the people, in the people who are living this reality every day, either homeless or the ones living in communities where there are people suffering, that the energy is that you're not important, nobody cares for you, nobody's looking out for you, and that feeling you feel of hopelessness is valid. And that's the message that our government is sending to people on the streets today. And there's something quite horrible and traumatizing about that. And so when people are like, we're being traumatized by our government, it's real. It's actually real. It's true. Because when you treat people like that from a place of such incredible power and prestige, where there is a implied duty to the role, and you get away with that dereliction of duty, it sends a very, very dark message to humanity. And I see, and many people look at your work, Scott, and they're like, this guy is a hero because he's not just calling it out from behind a keyboard. He is lacing up his shoes every single day, and he's going out there and he's doing it. And then so I've been looking at some of the mottos that you've shared with us over the years. Your original motto, stop talking, start doing, which you expressed just now. But you have this new motto: be super cute, have my data and facts, treat everyone with love and respect, and an army of people will follow. This is amazing. Where did that, you shared that with, I believe in a live interview. Is that how you always looked at it, or have you realized that there's a certain power in being approachable? You're 6'5", so you could be quite intimidating, but you're not. You're very sweet, And then you show up with the data and facts, treat everyone with love and respect, and an army of people will follow. Tell me about that.
So I'm doing an interview with CNN of all people. And this is after the Bucks County Board of Elections meeting where, they were trying to count these undated ballots. And I was there because I wanted to show people, even after the election, we must continue to be diligent and we must continue showing up. Otherwise, like you just mentioned earlier, these people, the unwatched, who feel that they are going to be able to get away with things without repercussions, are going to continue to feel empowered to do so. And so we show up to let them know, no, we're going to hold you accountable. And yes, I think my quote is a little tongue in cheek. I mean, I wouldn't normally, I don't think, say be super cute. But look, the natural love language, and I think the universal language is humor. If I can get people who disagree with me to like me or at least to laugh, look, I'm opening the door and I'm showing them my humanity. I'm showing them my real relatability. I'm showing them that I don't take myself too seriously and that I want to have a relationship with you. Look, in my household, if we're talking about my mom and dad, if the Preslers don't make fun of you, we don't like you. Like, you needle each other a little bit, showing that you do like each other. Otherwise, I wouldn't have anything to do with you. And so in that interview, that's how I truly feel. I feel that love is action. And I think love is actually factual as well. And so when I come to an interview, I'm prepared. I know my statistics, I know my facts because I live those statistics. I'm on the streets, I'm out registering voters, I'm doing the cleanups. I'm not just tweeting from some ivory tower. I'm where I need to be, and that's with the people. And I think people have seen that they are galvanized by seeing somebody else take action. And so this isn't the Nicole show. This isn't the Scott show. This is I'm showing you love by doing, and I'm welcoming and inviting people to come and join me in that action.
Beautiful. So y- I I come from a liberal background, just by virtue of being from the Bay Area, and you are speaking my language. These are the principles that I believe in, that I grew up with, but somewhere along the way, the Democratic Party no longer represented those beautiful values. These values of open your arms, get on the ground. People are in their situation because there's some trauma. Let's show them love by showing up and showing them what's possible. Let's not let these communities go ignored. And it's that selflessness that I think is what many of us classical liberals thought, that's what our party represented. And then all of a sudden it no longer represented that. And we were kind of caught in this very cold and strangely distorted world where words were coming out, but there was no substance, and actions were decrying layers of lies. Now, why use your superpower, Scott, for Republicans and Donald Trump?
It's my values. I have to say, and I hope this doesn't sound hypocritical because I know that we're talking about humanity as a whole, but at the end of the day, I am an American citizen. I have an allegiance, I have a loyalty to my country and to my people. And the biggest reason why I am a conservative and why I voted for Donald Trump and I support his agenda is truly illegal immigration. The biggest reason is because I believe my American people should come first, and I'm not willing to apologize to want to put the 50,000 homeless veterans that served our country first, to put the 500,000 Americans living homeless first. And really, to any liberal that might watch this podcast, and I hope you do. I hope there are people like I watch The View, I know,
You do.
but I
You
hope
watch
other
The View,
people
Scott?
I hope people continue to stay open-minded, but really, this is the biggest wake-up call that I hope liberals will really understand. If you care about women, as we all do, and you care about children and stopping sexual assault, and I don't mean to bring this there, then a logical and rational person would want to secure the border to protect women, to protect children, to stop trafficking, etc. To somebody that will proudly raise up their fist and say Black Lives Matter, as they do, and say that they support the Black community, then how could any logical person not want to put Black, white, and brown American lives first and take care of the American citizens? And furthermore, we're talking about California, the tragedy of 300 Americans dying in the United States daily from fentanyl and the opioid epidemic. And so, truly, if someone is humane, if someone wants to stop human suffering and, dare I say, global suffering, then that means that a nation must have borders and a nation has a duty and a responsibility to protect its people. And ultimately, that is my strongest reason why I align with Donald Trump and the Republican Party.
Yeah, I think that's really well stated. I mean, if you just think about it from, analogize it to a home and a family and a nuclear family, you have to take care of your own children because your direct responsibility is your children. You are mom and dad or parent, and you have these people in your household that you're responsible for. But imagine if, mom or dad decides to take all of their earnings and give it away to other people's families while their own children starve. We would consider that child neglect. It would be punishable. You would lose your children, you would lose your rights to parent. And it's widely accepted that this is wrong. So why wouldn't that apply to governments as well? If you are a local government official, your responsibility is to those in your municipal jurisdiction. If you're a governor, your responsibility is to the citizens of that state. If you're the federal government, you're responsible for every single American within our borders. And if you fail to take care of your own, you have no right in holding that responsibility. Um, and so I think that what you've outlined is I think the closing argument for many people who are throwing away these labels of conservative or liberal, because what has happened right now with the current administration and these people who call themselves Democrats, is that they are so anti-American and anti-responsibility and anti-accountability. I mean, they are true chaos agents that are watching their own people suffer and validating it. It is beyond comprehension. It is beyond the sanity of left right politics. It actually falls outside of it altogether. People have thrown around the word it's treason. I think they're right. I think that there's something criminally negligent about it.
Well, and it really, had we not experienced the stark contrast before of having 4 years of Donald Trump versus 4 years of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, I really don't think a lot of people would have had the wake up call that they just did on Tuesday, November 4th. It really, no one can tell me that this election wasn't, and my left side is going to be Trump and my right is going to be Kamala, between peace that we had under Trump and war, of a secure border, a border of nations, and an open border. And furthermore, an America First agenda that we have a lower corporate tax. Hello. So we're not sending jobs overseas and enriching other people, perhaps our enemies, versus a globalist ideology that takes care of everybody else over America. And I think we really got to see in the last 4 years that contrast. And before we delve deeper, I wanted to say, truly, I'm speaking for a lot of people right now. Nicole, thank you. Thank you. I was on a run earlier and I was just preparing myself for this interview with you. And I just thought to myself, I'm so thankful that you and RFK Jr. endorsed Donald Trump. Seriously, thank you, thank you, thank you. This team that we have created of people like the Make America Healthy Again movement, of people like No War with Tulsi Gabbard, of people of this technological renaissance with people like Elon Musk and these strong, smart millennials like Vivek Ramaswamy. I think we are going to have one of the most consequential and innovative governments that we truly have an opportunity of a lifetime. And again, thank you for endorsing Donald Trump. You literally helped save our country. And I truly, from the bottom of my heart, mean
Well,
that.
thank you, Scott. You know, you messaged me right after we made that decision to suspend and endorse, and you were just right straight to business. You said, um, who do you have on the ground in Pennsylvania? Let's talk because we've got a need. And I can't think of anybody that I talked to that first week. Um, you know, you're the only one that comes to mind of like someone who reached out, who knew exactly how he wanted to work with us. And and my takeaway from that was this, you know, I want to work with Scott. Like this is somebody I don't know what it is. I really like this guy. I want to work with him. And you know, even beyond the election, like this is somebody that I I find to have very high moral and standards of integrity. Somebody that I would have on my team any day of the week. um, so, you know, that leads me to my next question. Like, what are you working on right now? You're keeping very busy. I have another question actually that goes along with that. How did the RNC find you? Did you find them or did they find you?
Oh gosh, how much time
Yeah.
do we have on this? Well, let me provide some backpedaling context for a second. Listen, the RNC has not always been so welcoming to our work. I mean, I'm not gonna look. We're gonna stay classy. We're not gonna name names. We're just gonna simply say the previous administration I reached out to for 304 days. You know, my moniker is the persistence, and I tried to live up to that. I reached out to the previous RNC for 304 days saying, look, I want to help. I have this platform without sounding egotistical because that's not my intent. I think people trust me because I put in the work. People respect me because, again, I do what I say I'm going to do. And I just wanted to offer myself listen, we all want to save our country. I want to defeat Joe Biden or Kamala. I want to reelect President Trump. What can we do to work together? And it was crickets. I mean, it was palpable and people looked forward to my tweet every single morning saying, today is day 304, and I'm still asking to hear from the RNC. Now, you want to talk about contrast? Contrast that with when Michael Watley and his co chair, Laura Trump, assumed office. I heard from Laura, she called me personally on the phone. Actually, she went on Benny Johnson's show and was like, I want to, bring on Scott Presler. I want to work with him. I'm trending on social media, Nicole. And Laura calls me and she's like, hey, Scott, how are you doing? I was like, well, Laura, I'm trending on social media right now, thanks to you. And within 2 weeks of her taking office, I was at the RNC headquarters meeting with her. And so I'm forever grateful. Laura, if you ever see this, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for bringing the grassroots and having a seat at the table for the people that are out knocking doors in 100-degree weather and making phone calls and registering voters. Laura saw us and gave us a voice that other people wouldn't.
I didn't know that backstory. Thank you for sharing that. People have told
Yeah.
me they think I would get along with Laura well, and I've never met her. I've watched her from afar. I've been very impressed with how she's rebuilt the party, and the kind of leadership she's bringing to it. But that's really fascinating. So what are you working on now? Is this something that you see you want to take into um 2026, and what are kind of your concerns right now? Are you focused on the confirmations? I mean, there's so many moving pieces. um I'm also watching all of these moving pieces and trying to understand where my energy is best placed. um but I want to hear what you're thinking first.
Thank you. No, great question. Let me kind of roll up my sleeves for this one. So, well, look, I'm a workaholic. I can't sit still. And people are like, Scott, take a rest. And I can't. Our country's future is on the line. And guys, just because we won doesn't mean it's over. In
No, it's
fact, I
just the
mean,
beginning.
the fight has just begun peacefully, peacefully. And so here's where my head is at. Well, my organization is Early Vote Action. I'm going to do a very shameless plug, earlyvoteaction.com. And on Monday, we did a press release. We have rehired 23 staff, Nicole, because I'm a big proponent of learning from the mistakes of the past. And this is going to be a little bit of a long answer, but just bear with me because I want all of your beautiful audience members to know that there is a plan for the future. So, the Republican Party has made a mistake in the past of after an election, they pack up, they close their offices, they don't renew contracts of staff, and basically they wait for the midterms, or dare I say, wait for the next presidential election. And all of that data, all of that time forming relationships, all of that beautiful energy that you've been talking about just dissipates. And so my goal is listen, we are winners. We won, and we won with a mandate, and we won with the popular vote. So now it is incumbent upon us that we capitalize on this beautiful momentum we've created and we ride it straight into 2025. And so I am clear eyed and I am laser focused. And here is the ground game for 2025. So, number one, Pennsylvania. We won Pennsylvania. It's still a swing state, though. The Democrats have a Supreme Court of 5-2. Three Democrat Supreme Court justices are up for retention in November of 2025.
2025, there's an election in Pennsylvania for state
Yes,
Supreme Court. Okay.
yes, statewide.
Wow.
No one's talking
Nobody's talking about it.
about this. So that's why we're bringing attention to it. So, three Democrat Supreme Court justices, that, by the way, voted to allow Democrat Governor Wolf to shut down the state, voted, by the way, for undated and misdated mail in ballots in 2020 to be counted 3 days after Election Day. Those people are up for attention. So, how it works is the voters will decide either yay or nay on the justices. My goal is to get a no to retention for all three justices. Now, if that happens, no to justices, there will be a special election for all three in November of 2027. So basically, what I'm saying to you is we have the opportunity, if we play our cards right, we could elect three Republican Supreme Court justices in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, reshaping and remaking the Pennsylvania Supreme Court from 5-2 D to 5-2 Republican before the next presidential election in 2028. But wait, there's more. because on April 1st in 2025, the Wisconsin Supreme Court currently has 4 Democrats to 3 Republicans. Now, a Democrat is retiring, meaning she's not running for reelection. So, every person that watches this in Wisconsin, I want you to mark your calendar right now for Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. And if every single Trump and RFK Jr. and Nicole Shanahan supporter comes out on April 1st in Wisconsin, you will flip the Wisconsin Supreme Court to 4 Republicans to 3 Democrats. And I'm almost done, but this is important. We have 2 more states. In New Jersey, a state that went from double digits for Joe Biden in 2020 and within 5 percentage points to Donald Trump in 2024 has a gubernatorial election. So as a part of those 23 staff, we're going to dedicate time and resources and talent on that beautiful Pennsylvania New Jersey border to help that gubernatorial election. And then last, is the Virginia gubernatorial. And so those are the 4 important races that we must focus on in 2025 to capitalize on the energy that we've created and then ride that 2025 momentum into the all important midterm 2026 elections.
Wow.
I know it's a lot.
Well, that's a lot, but I think also what I'm hearing you say is that if we do this, in non-presidential election years, right? If we work every year consistently with relatively small staff, maybe we don't have to spend $10 billion in
Yes.
2028.
Yes.
And we have a little bit more sanity because we have some assurance that we've got good, high integrity people in place that are going to make sure that there's no fraud, ballot fraud, or election fraud happening in the months leading up to the election, which really was quite a scramble. I know that Laura Trump spent a huge amount of time and money in key battleground states to protect ballot integrity. And it really felt like such a scramble. And it felt, I mean, many people in the months leading up to the election were like, the Democrats just might cheat more than we can, get ahead of them. And that was a really real fear. It was such a fear that I talked to some conservative voters. They actually had very little faith that that the words they would use were actually quite shocking to hear, but they said the Democrats won't let a fair election happen. I mean that is a really scary thing to think that there are people that there are millions possibly of Americans that were so concerned about election integrity that they had actually given up prior to the date of the election. And imagine if those individuals hadn't come out and voted. I mean, that would have been absolutely devastating.
Yes. No, you make such a good point. So it's a couple things. Think about this for a second. Wisconsin, President Trump won the election, yet we weren't able to win the all important Senate seat. And now we have to worry about less conservative people like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins being able to direct President Trump's cabinet picks. We weren't able to win the Senate seats in Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin. Thankfully, we did in Pennsylvania, but it just shows you that, wow, what if we focus a couple $1 million on Supreme Court races like the one on April 1st, 2025, and therefore being able to then relitigate things like unmanned drop boxes to protect the vote and provide for election integrity so they're not able to rig things in Madison and Milwaukee, etc. Oh my gosh, that could then give so much confidence to voters that, wow, we won the popular vote in 2024. How much more votes could we squeeze out of Oregon and California and Washington, and Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Vermont, and New York, and all of those places that are blue? But if Republicans finally had the mentality, if every Republican in California voted, we would flip the state red.
Well,
Period.
I mean, all we also have to keep in mind that there's no voter ID requirement here in the state of California. So we actually have no concept of how many non-citizens may have submitted ballots
It's a good
here in
point.
the state. We actually have no idea. And I'm telling you this because I'm doing the research for the 2026 gubernatorial race here in California. And my concern right now is that even if there's a chance that I would win a fair election, there is not actually a fair process here in California. That the Democratic Party, um, the DOJ, the local commissioners, there's no accountability for ballot integrity. So there's actually likely no way that I could declare a victory in the state of California against the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has like literally every office on lock. And so if we cannot guarantee a fair election, there's actually no point in some a challenger running. Um, so how do we and I'm looking at California politics and I'm like, how in the world does a challenger come in? I don't know that it could start at the governor's level. I don't know that a governor that is a non-Democratic Party challenger would ever have a chance to even just make it through the primaries. So it's to me, and we saw this with RFK when he ran in the Democratic presidential primaries. No chance in hell he was going to get on the ticket. So if I know that you look at things with great optimism and you know where to put the energy to shake things up foundationally. Have you looked at all at the state of California? And if you were advising somebody like me who would be interested as running either as an independent or Republican, where would what are kind of the other offices we need to be looking at to get people of high integrity into first?
Sure. Well, there's a lot to unpack from your statement. So let me just kind of weave in there a couple things. What I'm hearing is there's a lack of confidence even uh, from across the aisle that I'm hearing, why run if I don't know it's going to be a fair election? Well, I would say to anyone that feels that way, Donald Trump has been in your shoes, and he's been in your shoes 3 times. In 2016, a lot of people told him he had no shot, and he was the outsider. I think he was, for all intents and purposes, the chaos agent with a good cause to help our country positively. And ultimately, he was successful because he was able to shake up the system. And although 2020 didn't pan out how we hoped it was going to for a variety of reasons, he stuck it out and ultimately he was successful. And so I would just encourage you, if you have those thoughts, think to yourself for a second, who else is going to do it? Who else is going to have the ability to reach independent minded voices like you and RFK Jr. have, that clearly resonated enough with voters to flip Imperial County, an 85% majority minority Hispanic county, to Republican? Clearly, a lot of these issues you have presented in California are resonating and are bringing people over. And so, a couple things that we need to do in going into 2025, 2026, and beyond is we have control of the entire government, or we will in January 20th, 2025. We'll have the presidency, we'll have the House, and we'll have the Senate. I'm hearing with a lack of confidence in our laws. Therefore, we need to peacefully pressure our politicians to put forth a national voter ID act, national voter integrity laws that are going to be in place even in blue states like California. Now, what I would also advise is look, we need we need reformational candidates that ultimately are going to help buttress 2026. And what I mean by that is listen, we have to come at this from a pragmatic standpoint. 2026, likely, unless President Trump really does follow through on all of his promises, unless we make life better for people, the party out of power usually wins historically in midterms. So we must prepare that we really only have 2 years to govern. That's it. We have 2 years to do SCOTUS and any healthcare legislation and any voter integrity laws. We have 2 years to get it done, or we may lose the House. Now, especially in a place like California, where we don't know what's going to happen yet with Duarte. And I think it didn't look good for either Michelle Steele, I think it was. And, I think young Kim still was able to win. But having a reformational candidate at the top of the ticket for the gubernatorial election in 2026 will ultimately help support a lot of those congressional seats that we need to win. And I'm not saying that a California candidate couldn't win, but I'm saying in the grand scheme, on the big picture, ultimately, this is about making sure that we have a successful 2026 nationwide. So, this agenda that we elected on Tuesday, November 5th, can ultimately see through it that all of those agenda policies actually come to fruition. And I know that's a really long answer, and I hope that I explained it as clearly as I can. But ultimately, I want you to know that I read a lot of my comments on social media. I told them I was going on your podcast with you today. And by the way, Bryce says hello. He's one of your biggest Maha people, the Mahagas, as we call them. And a lot of people were saying, Nicole, if you run for governor, they will proudly support you. They will vote for you. And I'll even go as far as say, listen, you let me know, girlfriend, and I'm happy to advise. I'm happy to counsel. I may even come back to California just to do some legal ballot harvesting
Well,
myself.
that sounds amazing, and we could schedule a cleanup as well because I know Oakland could
Yeah.
really use it, and I'd love your guidance on how to bring people out for that. Um, I so deeply want to see California back on its feet. I'm so deeply want to stop the hemorrhaging of funds that are being laundered to all corners of these very broken, corrupt schemes, whether they be around trying to clean up street violence. I mean, it's endless. The climate schemes, the housing schemes, the farming schemes. It's just scheme after scheme after scheme, and it just is so anti-human, and it's so anti-competency, and it's so anti-Californian, and it's so anti-American. I'm so sick of it. It's suffocating. It's suffocating everybody here. And I've tried to combat it privately through private advocacy and trying to figure out how to work with the existing government. Karen Ross is our Secretary of Agriculture here. I've tried to work with her. I've tried to work with universities. I've tried to work with nonprofits, and we are just up against forces that continue to shock me. How uh, insidious it is. How insidious and how these ideas for humanity are not coming, these are not California grown solutions. They're coming in from elsewhere. And they're telling the California state um, officials that this is how you combat climate change. You cut water off from farmers. And these are the programs for fallowing lands. And these are the programs that you need to get out in relation to electric cars. And these are the program. It just this is not, none of it's logical. None of it fits the native Californian need. Uh, it's harming people. It's driving people out. It's driving businesses out. We're losing so much in corporate tax revenue because corporations just can't stand it anymore. We're losing some of our most talented engineers. We're losing some of our most talented doctors and teachers. I mean, it is really, really sad, and it's happening very, very quickly. So we cannot afford for this regime of individuals who are importing I hate using the term globalist policies. It's because it's these nihilistic policies that are really, I think, designed to undermine the strength and integrity of our nation. And California is such an easy target, has been an easy target for these individuals for generations now, and we've got to nip it in the butt. Californians want change. They don't want any more of this bullshit. They know that their problems are not due to Donald Trump, as they've been told. We've been told for the last 8 years, all of your problems are Donald Trump's fault. And it's not the case. Maybe we could have believed that in 2020, but it's very clear that our problems only got worse under President Biden and Kamala Harris.
And I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but two things that people can do to start building more confidence in California is earlier in our conversation, I told you how when I did that CNN interview, I was at a Board of Elections meeting, a county commissioner meeting. I encourage everyone watching this program, please, you must show up at your city council meetings, at your school board, at your BOE, at your county commission. Remember, part of this discussion that we've had, folks, is that there are no repercussions for the actions. I don't know if you've seen, Nicole, the viral video of in New Jersey, a city council told a gentleman using an American flag during his discussion that his flag was banned from the speech. And that has gone viral on social media. And now on December 11th, everybody is going to show up peacefully at that meeting and with American flags. And I bet you they're going to have something to say about banning the American flag because people are watching, people are showing up, people are taking positive action. And furthermore, one thing really to help California that a lot of people aren't talking about is whenever you move in California, there is a voter registration cancellation form that you must send in. Like literally, you must fill it out and mail it to your county election bureau. Otherwise, every time you move and don't cancel your previous voter registration, a mail in ballot will be sent to that old address, whether or not you requested one. And simply by providing that education to perhaps hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of Californians, that is one way to mitigate voter fraud simply with that educational tool.
That's a great tip. Um, well, to wrap up, I want to talk about something personal because one of the things that I think have people confused about your persona is that you're this gentle giant. You have defied everyone's preconceived biases. You know come up. The CNN reporter clearly was confused by you because you could tell she subscribed to kind of this woke style of seeing the world. and she was really confused by you because you don't fit into any of the Democrats' identity politics boxes. Like you defy them all, and I think you really short circuit the mind of these Democrats that have been told, people fit in these boxes, and some boxes are good and some boxes are bad, and it's very black and white. And that black and white thinking is consumed, so much, so many of our young people. And meeting you just is like the antidote to that. It destroys all of that identity politics thinking. Um, you know, like, you own it. You are owning it in ways that is so impressive. How do how did you break free of identity? Because you're a young man, so you were brought up in academia under identity politics. You broke free of it. You're like, this is who I am. I'm going to own it. What is the advice you'd give to others who still subscribe to that black and white identity politics thinking?
It sounds so cliche, but the only opinion that really matters is how you view yourself. I became a happier person in life when I truly stopped caring what everybody else thinks about who I am. Now, I'm not saying don't care how people perceive you, because that is important in life, but stop giving so much stock to people that hate you. And I really do mean that. Look, I'm never going to win over the Democrats. And the only things that matter is truly being a good person, being a good civil servant, and being true to who I am. And again, I know it sounds super cliche, but I don't care. I'm here on this earth. I have limited time while I'm here. I'm not going to spend my limited time and energy trying to please the rest of the world. And I truly became a happier person and more confident when I stopped caring about pleasing everybody else.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's very, very well said. And yeah, I see a lot of misery in young people who are stuck in the world of identity politics, who think that, the biggest issue is endemic racism in our country, and they can't see past an individual's skin color. I mean, that to me is one of the worst fallouts of this current anti-racist movement, is that it's actually created a whole new generation of racist thinking, which has completely made people unable to see who the individual is. Because if you're so indoctrinated to only see people by their skin color, it becomes very problematic in reaching solutions to the real issues that are actually plaguing individuals' health and freedoms and liberties. And so I think that, what I'm really inspired by meeting you is that you're a man who said, I'm not going to be defined as like, what did the New York Post say? New York Post called you long-haired gay giant who helped Trump flip Pennsylvania red. I mean, I read that headline and I was like, that's kind of charming and provocative, but like, I want people to see Scott for Scott
Yes.
and not for this identity politics that is used for clickbait, because that is, it misses the point. It misses the point on what this whole American exercise of freedom and liberty is about. And so it's been a great privilege to watch you overcome all of that.
Thank you. Well, and just to expand upon that for a second, this whole entire conversation that we've just had, we didn't even use one of the words that you just did the entire time, because I don't want to be pigeon held in that box. I think people respect me because I'm out of the box thinking. And furthermore, no one, whether it's gender, the color of your skin, whatever, I'm so much more respectfully than what's in between my legs. I'm so much more than who I choose to love. I think most importantly, what should be emblematic of how we respond to society is you show your love through your actions. And I think that's how ultimately I want to be remembered.
Amen. Me too. I really appreciate this conversation, and I learned a huge amount. In fact, you had me a little bit tongue-tied talking about the complexities of some of these races because your level of sophistication is so much higher than mine. And it's just been a real pleasure to learn from you and to watch you in action. So, Scott, thank you so much.
No, thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity. And just who knows, I might be coming out there to California sometime. So I look forward to hopefully meeting you in
I
person
would
sometime.
love to host you. All right, take care.
Thanks, Nicole.